Hello, everyone. As we know, medicine is forever changing. We're always thinking about innovation in medicine and even in the space of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're also always thinking about the importance of building a sense of community, whether you're a medical trainee or already a practicing physician. In this week's episode, part 2 with Dr. Darin Latimore, we jump into these topics and more, including discussing the importance of faculty development and professional development if you're already an attending. Hi, I'm Dr. Jasmine Weiss, and we are on the Black Med Connect podcast, affectionately known as the B-Med podcast, where we share inspiring stories of Black physicians and physicians in training. This week, in part 2, we'll dive into those amazing topics and much, much more. So let's jump right into the episode. Roll the music. Do you, when you think about the work that you're doing, how have things changed over the past, since you started in the role and where you see it now? How have things changed?
Oh my goodness. This is a loaded question because the politics of our country have just changed so drastically over the last couple of years. So, I was like doing my happy dance because sadly, it took George Floyd's murder and it took people finally realizing that Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
But approximately 2 years or so ago, people were really starting to embrace that we need to move forward, especially when it came to equitable solutions for Black people in this country. And so the work was really progressing, really moving forward. Unfortunately, over the last year or so, the backlash is horrific, just horrific. As you may or may not know, the Supreme Court should be coming out any day now with a decision about if we can even use affirmative action at all in higher education, which may have a horrible impact on the number of Black and brown students getting into college. And if you don't go to college, you can't go to medical school. You may or may not know about 25 different states have bills that they're in the process of trying to pass that are basically anti-woke bills. Some of them literally are shutting down their DEI offices. I have colleagues whose schools are closing diversity, equity, and inclusion offices, or they can't use those words anymore. They got to call themselves something else. Are saying that laws that are saying that you can't use race again at your admissions or in your hiring. So unfortunately, right now, we're really in a space and time that's extremely challenging for people who do diversity work. And if you're in one of the more red states, that challenge is extremely acute. Also, sadly, the haters. Unfortunately, in the last year or so, I've gotten way more hate emails and texts, and I'm literally on a couple of sites, as you know, and demonized a couple of very conservative right-wing sites and demonized for the work that I'm actually doing, which is about creating inclusion for everybody. It's actually not about stepping on the heads of people who don't happen to identify as BIPOC, but they try and present it as if I am somehow trying to harm people who don't identify as BIPOC.
Yeah, that's so unfortunate. How do you combat that hatred? What are your colleagues doing? Are there any strategies that people are working through? Because as you said, the boomerang effect that we're seeing is so unfortunate because of the way in which the work was progressing.
Unfortunately, I think many of us, which I'm not sure is a good tactic, is doing this kind of wait and see what the Supreme Court says or does, and then reacting to. But I would say most institutions are taking that approach versus a proactive approach. I would say many of us who are doing this work are really trying to support each other and talking through strategies. Like, for example, okay, how do you reframe it so that it's no longer illegal? Because like I say, some offices are literally having to change their name or be shut down. So, okay, if you can't have an office of DEI, how are you going to continue to do this work on your campus in a way that's meaningful? So really, really trying to support one another right now, and also really trying to figure out exactly how narrow, which would be more beneficial than the Supreme Court case is or how broad their language is, which would be more draconian.
Yeah, absolutely. I think at the heart of what we're talking about, we forget the impact this has on the patients and the learners, when these institutions and when the government makes these decisions. So not even advice, how would you, if you were back in the role of maybe a resident or a med student, how would you navigate right now? And I know this is something we talk about. I talk about with trainees a lot, what it feels like to come through training, knowing that your identities are kind of on the chopping block in a sense. Like we're willing to close the office that supports you. What advice would you give to a trainee in this time?
So I would really encourage trainees, if you don't have already a group, I call it posse, but an organization that supports you and your identities. Most campuses is SNMA or LMSA. If you don't have something like that, I would strongly advocate that you help with your other peers to form. On the resident side, if you don't have a minority house staff organization, I would encourage you to, because you really over the next couple of years are going to need your community, quite frankly, to support you. You really, truly are. Be ready. It's only a matter of time in this atmosphere before you're going to meet that patient who's racist or that healthcare provider, unfortunately, who's racist. Mm-hmm. Be ready for that. So sort of kind of know how are you going to try and respond? And most importantly, try and figure out how not to absorb their whatever and to really hand it back to them. And you don't have to be rude. You don't have to be unprofessional in how you hand it back, but make sure that you don't absorb it, whatever it is. And really try and work on that. Again, as we talked about earlier, figure out who are your resources in your institution that when these things happen, because it's not an if, it's a when in the political environment we're in right now. So when they happen, who are your resources that you can go to? They may not be in your specialty if you're a resident. You may feel safer outside of your specialty. If you're a medical student, hopefully it's somebody in the medical school, but it may not be someone in administration that you feel safe with. But what I care about is you find somebody that you can talk to and who can help you pick yourself back up after whatever and help you move forward.
Absolutely. You really are speaking to that sense of belonging and finding community, and finding support, because it's so critical. And even, would you speak a little bit at the faculty level? Because a lot of times, I think because people are in training, whether it be medical school, residency, fellowship, you're actively seeking out trainings, right? Even if it's related to equity, inclusion, whether it's related to bias and anti-racism. How do you think, what are some things that people can do if they're already on faculty, and how are institutions thinking about their faculty when it comes to making sure that the environment is inclusive?
So I am going to speak, I am going to come home to Yale, and that's not to be Yale centric, but just to give you examples of things that we've done here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've developed a faculty organization called MORE, Minority Organization for Retention and Expansion. And we are having increasing events. We have at least every month, we have a general body meeting where people can at least come together, see each other, talk about different issues. In addition to that, we have different educational events, things to support faculty's careers. And then we have external events like professional development retreats, welcome events that are off campus. So again, building community. As a faculty member, I would strongly advocate that you find external professional development things that are specifically geared for your identity. So we at Yale send a lot of women or people who identify as underrepresented in medicine and science to AAMC professional development programs that are specifically for people with those identities. And why I think it's super important that you do this is not only do you learn new skills, but you expand your network, because there'll be people with your identities from all across the country whom you can partner with in your science, or whom you can call upon when you're having problems or issues to brainstorm on ways to actually work through those. So I cannot talk up enough the importance of going to these things. And I know if you're feeling like you're under the radar, if you're feeling like you're not being treated well, your first distinct instinct is to put your head down and work harder, prove to them. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily wrong, but I am saying that these other components are equally important for your long-term mental health, quite frankly, well-being and career success.
Absolutely. So I love that, especially across the institutions. So the AAMC has professional development opportunities for faculty as well. Thank you for sharing that.
For the people who don't know, we say AAMC, but it's AAMC.
Oh, yes. Good point.
Google this to figure out what I'm talking about. AAMC.
Yes. And there's a lot of organizations, so that is definitely a huge one that advocates for faculty development. Hello, everyone. Are you enjoying the episode so far this week? Well, I'm excited to announce that this week's episode is sponsored by the BMed app. That's right. You heard it. The Black Med Connect app. This app will be for any Black or Brown pre-medical students, medical students, residents, fellows, and attendings, even for institutions. We're in the process of developing our app, and we wanted to share it with you now. So if you're interested in receiving updates on when the BMed app will be available to the world, then head on over to bmedconnect.com/app, APP, and join the waitlist. Let's jump right back into the episode. When you think about how to move forward in this time and even some of the obstacles and challenges, when you look across the next 5 years, what do you hope to see change? What innovative strategies can we begin to use? AI is huge right now. Technology is transitioning, a lot more outside of medicine. You hear about these things, but how can you leverage some of the, those types of trends, even as you think about your work going forward?
So I think technology actually is either going to be our gift to solutions. Or it's going to be our curse. So as minoritized people, I would strongly advise you to be involved in innovation. And innovation can take multiple different ways, including AI. So I'm just going to use AI as an example of one innovation. There's multiple different ones that, depending on your personal interests, your personal skill sets, you may want to be involved in. So AI, if done correctly, could literally give access to people who currently don't have access at a price they can afford, i.e. zero.
The best price.
In other countries, people get things on their cell phones. They get a daily little educational healthcare sort of prevention educational thing. Just think about all the people currently in our communities that don't go to the doctor on a regular basis, how we potentially could use technology to help keep them up to date on their own healthcare and how they can be more engaged in their healthcare. But I say that we need to be part of these conversations, because if we're not, these algorithms can be just as biased and quite frankly discriminatory as the history of medicine in this country. And if we're not at the table, it's very likely, and it's not that people are purposely trying to be discriminatory or purposely trying to be racist, it's just they're not thinking about it. So let's just take one example. Let's take COVID. So let's take a recent example. One of the things that one of the triages ways that people decided if a person was sick enough that they should be hospitalized or should go home was they would just do a pulse oximetry. They would just put this little thing on your hand and determine what your oxygen is. Well, lo and behold, we find out that the algorithms used to determine that did not think about darker skin. Lo and behold, we find out people with darker skin were actually, the pulse oximetry was reading that our oxygen saturation was better than it actually is. And so as a darker skinned person that I am, if I had COVID, I was having difficulty breathing and they put that pulse oximetry on my finger, they could have told me to go home when I actually should have been in the hospital. Now, this is probably just one of many reasons why Black and brown people were dying more faster with COVID initially than white people. Again, I don't think anybody who developed a post oximetry was saying, let me stick it to them dark-skinned people. I don't think that was the goal, but I anticipated no dark-skinned people were around when they were developing it and stuck the thing on their finger and said, something don't seem right here.
Mm-hmm.
So I just say that, I say this to say innovation is going to happen whether we want to or not. We need to be part of those conversations. We need to be part of those developments, and we definitely need to be part of thinking through, is this in any way, shape, or form biased in a positive or a negative way against the communities we truly want to serve?
Absolutely. And you said so much there. And that's one clinical example that's recent. And there are so many. If we were to start thinking about the historical impacts of racism throughout clinical care, we would be here another session to discuss. And you've mentioned this a few times, being at the table, being in the C-suite, being present, thinking through innovation. That's why we say in medicine, we need you, because there's so many spaces in which we need to think about these things, whether that be direct patient care, advocacy, the political health policy level, the biomedical innovation level, basic science. We need it all. So when you're in your role, how do you make sure you're thinking about every facet of the med school when you think about diversity, equity, and inclusion?
So how I do it, or try and do it, is make sure I listen to as many voices as possible at all levels of the organization. And I mean from environmental services all the way up.
Yes.
And so that I surround myself with people with very different perspectives and very different positionality in the organization. I think where leaders really, really often fail is because they surround themselves with a very small, limited group of people who actually think very much alike. Mm-hmm. And so I try my best not to do that. I always say, if you really want to know what's going on in an institution, ask environmental services.
Yes. And food services, they know.
Exactly.
They absolutely know. I want to give them a shout out just because you said that. I think, especially in training and as a faculty member, we don't give them enough kudos. Without environmental services, food services, every aspect, our hospital systems and patient care spaces would crumble, literally. So I appreciate what they do and what everyone does. And
truly, they know the true personalities of people. I've had more than one pull me aside and tell me who to be watch out for, who is an ally. I've had more than one along the way let me know they had my back.
Yeah. And they're so encouraging. I remember being a trainee and just the simple nod, like, thank you for being here. And then the reciprocal, thank you for being here nod. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, I love that. And you spoke a little to leadership.
Which is not part of this, but as you move up the ladder in your identities, what was just said is super important. Whether you realize it or not, even if you're a medical student, you think you got so much further to go up. Don't forget all the people that have not actually accomplished what you have so far. And that's each and every step. You are a role model today, and you will be a role model for the rest of your life. Now, I'm hoping and praying you choose to role model a positive thing.
Yes.
And not a negative thing. But every moment that somebody can see or hear you, you are role modeling. And one thing that we just said that I would love all of us to role model, that is acknowledging every human being that we come in contact with. I don't care what their status is, quote unquote, whatever that's supposed to really mean. Mm-hmm. Acknowledge everybody and make sure that everybody realizes that their value and their self-worth.
I love that. And I think I'm going to say I appreciate you, because the work you do is exceptional. I've always looked up to you as a role model from the time I stepped foot at Yale as a fellow, and you were just a joy to even just see the work you were doing across the campus and then getting to work closely with you as well. Do you have any other parting words of wisdom before we jump into our bolus round, which we'll get into.
My parting words of wisdom is please don't give up whatever your dream is. Unfortunately, there's so many people in this world that will be negative and discourage you and try and tell you why you can't accomplish whatever it is that you actually want to accomplish. I say, please don't listen to the naysayers. Please continue to move forward. Every single one of us has had failures. Deputy Dean Darin Latimore, Chief Diversity Officer at Yale School of Medicine, has had a life full of failures. Those failures is not what has defined me. What has defined me is every time I get up, I brush myself off, and I keep moving forward. Keep putting one foot in front of the other until you get to wherever you want to be.
I love that. Thank you for that. That's such great advice for everybody listening. I love it. Thank you. Now we're going to transition into our bolus round, which if this is your first episode watching or listening, we do what's called the bolus round, which is a rapid fire fun Q&A with our guest. Normally in medicine, when we talk about a bolus, it's a large push of fluids, normal saline, a lot of other types of fluids to help a patient who may be sick or dehydrated or had some level of trauma. They need some fluids for some reason and we give it quickly. So this is a rapid fire fun Q&A. So are you ready, Dr. Latimore?
I think so.
Okay. All right. So the first question for you is, what is your favorite hobby?
Oh my goodness. I actually am an avid horseback rider. I actually have horses. I have a Tennessee Walker for anyone who knows anything about horses. And so my favorite thing to do when I have free time is to ride my horse either out in the woods or out on the street. And for those who know anything about horses, Tennessee Walkers are a real smooth horse. And so I can go very fast without bouncing up and down. And I just love people's mouths wide open as they see this Black man riding down the street at 10 miles an hour. I absolutely love that.
I love it now, Dr. Latimore. I got to see you ride your horse now. I love that. All right. So if you had to pick one person, whether they're here with us or gone on, to have lunch with, who would that be?
I don't know if people can see me or not, but Harriet Tubman. That is Harriet Tubman in her more mature stage in life. I just would love to just talk with her. I mean, that's bravery. You can't think of something more brave than what Harriet did over and over and over. So yes. I would love to understand where she found that inner strength.
Yes, I love that. I love that. And so if you had to pick one TV show, just one, to watch for the rest of your life.
I don't watch TV, so this is not a good question for me. I don't watch it at all. Question.
Okay. Well, then that is the answer then, right? You don't have to have a TV show. None of the above.
I have a TV and it probably has not been turned on, and I'm not lying, in 9 months.
Oh, wow. You're much better than a lot of people. Well, if you have horseback riding as a hobby instead, you're not inside to watch the TV. Okay. Well, next question is, what would be your favorite vacation destination if you could go this year?
Well, where I do go, I go every year. I go to Hawaii for the 4th of July week. I have a timeshare. Right. And the reason why, for me, I like it so much is a place where I can completely disconnect. I'm going to be going to a big island, which is not very populated. So I'll just find me spots where I literally will just enjoy nature and the silence or the ocean waves for hours at a time.
I love that. Hawaii is definitely on my destination list one day. So big island.
Well, if you want silence, a big island. If you want activity and lots of people, then Honolulu.
I'll write that down. And then one final question. Two questions. If you had to choose a Black-owned restaurant anywhere in the U.S., what would be your favorite Black-owned restaurant?
Oh, wow. I'm not sure that's fair. So I'm going to go local. I'm not going to go national. So I'm going to say Sandra's Next Generation, which is a soul food restaurant, which is literally right down the street from where I work at. And it's in a very predominantly Black neighborhood. That's local. National, we would have to debate depending on. We probably would land in New Orleans, but I'm gonna weave from that one.
Fair enough.
I love you from up. But I'm gonna be quiet. Keep going.
No, you were gonna tell me your favorite dish. What's your favorite dish?
My favorite food is seafood. So fish is my favorite.
Okay, excellent. And then my last question, if you wanted to represent or rep any organization or initiative that you have going on or that you're part of, what initiative or organization would you like to represent?
I'm not going to represent a specific organization, but a concept. And that is a concept of giving back and trying to motivate the younger generation. So again, I know we're always thinking about where we want to go and what we still have to do and what we want to accomplish. And I understand that. I fully understand that. But I just beg you, don't forget to look back. Don't forget to think about where you once were and the shoulders that you needed to get from where you once were to where you are now. And please, please find time to volunteer. Find time to motivate, even if it's just one person, because especially right now, it's needed. It truly is needed.
Well, thank you for that concept. That advice, giving back, is just something we all have to remember to keep at the forefront of what we do. And I just want to say thank you again for giving back your time today and sharing your experiences with us and helping to motivate myself and the listeners. I know I'm motivated by our conversation. So just want to say thank you again for your time today.
Thank you so much. And once again, please don't give up. Please stay strong. Please continue to follow your dreams. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Can I ask one last question? How can people reach out to your office if they have questions? What's the best way to do that?
If you just Google Yale School of Medicine, specifically Yale School of Medicine, Diversity Office or DEI, we should come up. If not, then just Google me, Darin Latimore. I absolutely will come up for you.
Perfect. Well, thank you again. And to our audience, thank you for listening and watching. Don't forget to leave a comment and share what was the most impactful part of this episode for you. And we look forward to hearing from you. And always remember to dream without limits. And we'll see you on the next episode. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the BMed podcast with Dr. Darin Latimore. We had such an amazing conversation about what to think about moving forward in the DEI space within medical education, along with many, many other great topics, including giving back and having an awesome bonus round where we got to learn all about Dr. Latimore and some of his favorite vacation destinations and hobbies. I just want to say thanks again to Dr. Latimore for taking time to share about his journey, what he does in his role as a Chief Diversity Officer, and how we can continue to support one another along this journey in medicine. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget, hit that like button if you're watching on YouTube and to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Or if you like listening to podcasts, subscribe on any podcast platform. We also have a special bonus if you are going to medical school soon and you want some tips on how to get ready for those interviews, then head over to bmedconnect.com and you'll see how to sign up for your free cheat sheet on how to prepare for interviews. It'll also be in the show notes as well. Don't forget, comment below. Let us know if you're enjoying the episodes and give us an idea on what you want to hear about next. Again, I'm Dr. Weiss, and until next time, always remember to dream without limits. Bye.